Good evening. On behalf of Professional Development Committee of the Western India Regional Council, I welcome you all for today's webinar on new GST scheme. I request CMA Chaitanya Morir sir, Chairman Professional Development Committee of WRC, to kindly give his welcome address.
Welcome all. I'm really thankful to Dr. Sanjay Bhargave sir for accepting our invitation to describe the scheme of waiver of interest or penalty under Section 128A. This amnesty scheme is starting from 1st of November, and this will be very important for all of us. I'll just give a brief introduction of Bhargave sir. CMA Sanjay Ramchandra Bhargave, he is a fellow member of our institute. He is having more than 43 years of experience in journalism, taxation, cost and management, accounting, banking, materials management, O&M, and implementing advanced management techniques like Kaizen, ISO, etc. Uh, I request everyone, can you go on mute, please? Bhargave sir was worked at a senior position in professionally managed companies. He is a practicing cost accountant with a specialization in indirect taxes and cost reduction technique. He was Central Council member of our institute. He was also a chairman of West India Regional Council. He has been awarded a PhD by Savitribai Phule Pune University on the subject. Sir, can you please go on mute? Sandesh. Sandesh sir, can you please go on mute? Yeah. Bhargave sir has been awarded a PhD by Savitribai Phule University on the subject tax planning as a tool of cost reduction with special emphasis on central excise and service tax with reference to selected industrial units in and around Pune. So we are very lucky that Bhargave sir has accepted our invitation to deliver the or to tell us the scheme on waiver of interest or penalty under Section 128A. Over to you, Bhargave sir. Bhargave sir. Sir, you are on mute.
Five minutes. Sir will be joining within 5 minutes.
Okay.
Can you?
Sir, voice is
Hello.
not clear.
We can hear.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Yes, sir. Sir, we can hear you.
Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Good
sir, we
evening,
can
sir.
hear you. Good evening, sir.
Hear you. उसको पूछो स्टार्ट करना है या नहीं.
Yes, sir, you
गौरी
can
को
start.
पूछेंगे स्टार्ट.
Yes, sir, you can start.
गौरी शुरू करूँ का? ठीक आहे, मी सुरू करतो. इंट्रोडक्शन वगैरे झालं ना सगळं? हॅलो.
Yes, sir. Oh, sir. You can start, sir.
Good evening. Today we
good
are
evening,
here.
sir.
Good evening, participants. And particularly I am thankful to WRC for giving me an opportunity to share my views on the new amnesty scheme, which is recently announced by Government of India Ministry of Finance. Basically, this scheme is for waiver of interest or penalty or both. And obviously, there are number of ifs and buts and lot of conditions also to avail benefit under that. Uh, we'll try to understand the important aspects of the new scheme, and then we'll be also discussing certain queries also which have been clarified by the indirect taxes also. That also will be discussing in this session. So why this scheme has been announced? Let's try to understand background. That is from 1st July 2017. Initially, there was no clarity on many GST provisions. Maybe one of that reason is poor drafting that everybody knows, because in the first year itself, more than 300 plus amendments were passed in the GST provisions. Practically, every day amendment, there was some clarification, some flyer, and many messages by GST authorities also on various forums.
Uh, I just spoke with Bhargav sir. He is facing some connectivity issue. He is joining in a minute.
because of this infection. Uh, Sorry for the interruption and disturbances. There was some connectivity problem. Let us start once again. Basically, there were a lot of circulars issued, notifications issued during the initial period, and it created a lot of problems for the uh, taxpayers also. And another thing that the necessity of this amnesty scheme was GST department, particularly state tax authorities, were aggressively issuing assessment notices, audit notices, and were issuing demand notices. Without going into the facts also, just they were taking two figures from two different sources, and this is not matching. Notices issued, huge demand was created. And this created lot of issues, lakhs of show cause notices were issued, demanding huge amounts. And again, the litigation started. The even the adjudicating authorities were also not clear. They were also waiting for some clarification from the board about the confusion created amongst the trade and others. And one more reason that due to COVID-19 pandemic also, many taxpayers could not file GST returns in time, and which created problems for their customers or clients in availing input tax credit. If you look at the composition of the litigations under GST, you'll find that more than 95% or 90% uh, disputes are in the area of input tax credit. Then other 10% includes that late filing of returns, tax collected but not paid, and short payment, non-payment of taxes, and few litigations on e-way bill. So 90% disputes are in the area of input tax credit, and then government realized this problem, and realizing the issues faced by trade, based on the recommendations of the GST Council in the 53rd meeting, special provision has been made by inserting section 128A in the CGST Act 2017 for conditional waiver of interest or penalty or both. Of course, this scheme, conditional waiver of interest or penalty or both, this benefit can be availed only in certain conditions, and that too, particularly the major condition, the main condition is that the demand should have been raised under the provisions of section 73 and not under section 74. Now, what is section 73? What is section 74? That also we'll discuss in the due course. But first, the first one is that demand should have been raised under section 73. 73 means where there is no separation of fact or the demand is raised on the basis of some mistakes by the SSC and not by separation of fact of fraud or misstatement. And the period covered for this particular scheme is from year 2017-18, that is from 1st July 2017 to financial year 2019-20, that is up to 31st March 2020. So this is the limited amnesty scheme for the limited reason and limited period. Then what happens if the demand is to the period subsequent to 2019-20 or the show cause notice covers period from 17-18 to 20-21-22 or 23-24? What is going to happen? That also we'll be discussing. during the session only, because there are a lot of basically questions in the mind of taxpayers, in the minds of assessees, that what how should how one should avail the benefit, whether I am eligible for availing the benefit or not. I have some doubts. So of course on certain points board has issued clarifications, but there are many issues which are unanswered even today also. So we'll try to discuss a few points also, or we can call it as a FAQ, frequently asked questions. On that also we shall be discussing in the latter part of this discussion. So first, let us try to understand what is the scheme, who is eligible, who is not eligible, and what is done. Now, as I mentioned, that the first condition is the demand should have been raised under section 73, that is for the normal reason and not on account of suppression of fact and others. Period 2017-18 to 2019. And the third and most important condition is that the taxpayer has to first pay the full amount of tax demanded in the notice up to 31/3/2025. Here, the question comes to the mind that if the notice is, let us say, for 15 lakh rupees, and only on few points you have to avail this conditional waiver of interest or penalty, whether it can be availed or not. So the answer is that first you pay 15 lakh rupees full, and then you can avail the benefit of this amnesty scheme, whether the amount is for 1 lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees. So full payment of the tax demanded in the notice, compliance has to be done on that condition. Now, this interest or penalty waiver scheme is popularly known as an amnesty scheme. I'll be also using the word amnesty scheme only during this discussion. For this purpose, in this finance bill, the provision was made to insert a new section 128A, and now that has been inserted in the CGST Act 2017, while Finance Act 2024, and subsequently notification number 17/2024 dash central tax has been issued, uh, communicating the effective date. The section has come into force with effect from 1st November 2024. That means this scheme is made applicable from 1st November 2024. Now, what is this scheme and what are the important dates? Let us have a cursory look on that. 1st November 2024 is the notified date for implementation of this amnesty scheme. That we have to keep in mind. Secondly, by notification number 20/2024 dash central tax dated 8th October 2024, a new rule 164 has been inserted in the CGST rules 2017, basically prescribing the procedure, prescribing various formats for availing the benefit of this scheme. And this rule has been inserted with effect from 1st November 2024. So it has just 4 days are completed for introducing this scheme. The rule 164 has been inserted, but the clarifications regarding various provisions are also inserted, uh, and what circular also has been issued to that effect. Then next is notification number 21/2024, central tax dated 8/10/2024, that a date that is 31st March 2025 has been notified as the date on or before which payment of tax shall be made to avail benefit of section 128A of the CGST Act. That means from 1st November 2024 to 31st March 2025, this scheme will be open. On 31st March 2025, the payment window will be closed. And after that, even if somebody wants to avail benefit and he is convinced that he should have availed benefit, he will not be able to do that. So the first important condition is that payment, whatever payment, due payment has been calculated, has been determined by the taxpayer and has been confirmed by the GST authorities. The payment has to be made before 31st March 2025, and then only the SSC can avail the benefit of this scheme. Now, scheme is applicable for the disputes pertaining to period from 1st July 2017 to 31st March 2020 only. That means, as I mentioned earlier also, that if the dispute is pertaining to a period after 1st April 2020, the benefit of this amnesty scheme cannot be availed. So this is the amnesty scheme introduced only for a limited purpose, for limited period also, for limited period only. And uh, various forms, terms and conditions have been prescribed in Rule 164 of the CGST Rule 2017 to avail benefit of Section 128. These forms also which will be discussing in this session. And most important is that one must read this circular number 238/32/2024 GST dated 15th October 2024, which answers majority of the queries which we have in our mind. This circular covers major area, though few queries, few questions are unanswered, but majority of the queries have been answered by Central Board of Indirect Taxes in White Circular number 238/32/2024. So for better understanding of the scheme, we need to basically understand, we need to peruse this circular, and then our many doubts will be cleared. Now, coming to the eligibility. Who is eligible to avail the benefit of this scheme? There are three conditions or three categories of persons as eligible person for waivers for this waiver scheme. Number one, there should be a show cause notice issued under Section 73 or a statement under Section 73(3). Now, what is the difference between the show cause notice under Section 73 subsection 1 or a statement under Section 73 subsection 3? Let us try to understand. Show cause notice is the starting point of litigation. And if no show cause notice is issued, then there is no question of going into litigation, and there is no question of uh, dispute resolution also, because the dispute is not yet basically finalized. The point is not finalized. The demand has not been raised by the department, and therefore, if there is no show cause notice, then nobody can basically opt for this scheme. Show cause notice is the basic demand, and for the subsequent period, whatever demand is raised, that is called as the statement issued under Section 73/3. To make it more clear, that let us assume that the show cause notice has been issued covering period from 1st July 2017 to March 2018. And on the same points, for the subsequent period, the demand is raised through the statement. For that purpose, fresh show cause notice is not required to be used. Statement is a continuation of the notice for the subsequent period. Now, the first category of and the first condition that there has to be a show cause notice issued under section 73 or statement under section 73(3). Now, why repeatedly I'm quoting this section 73, and for that purpose we have to basically refer to the relevant provisions also. Section 73(1), where it appears to the proper officer that any tax has not been paid or short paid or erroneously refunded, or where input tax credit has been wrongly availed or utilized for any reason, most important is other than the reason of fraud or any willful misstatement or suppression of facts to evade tax, he shall serve the notice on the person chargeable with tax which has not been so paid or which has been so short paid, or to whom the refund has erroneously been made, or who has wrongly availed or utilized input tax credit, requiring him to show cause as to why he should not pay the amount specified in the notice along with interest payable thereon under section 50 and penalty leviable under the provisions of this act and or the rules made thereunder. So this makes it very clear that the cases pertaining to short payment of tax, erroneous refund, and wrong availment and wrong utilization of input tax credit, cases pertaining to this only are covered in section 73 for demanding the notice. And that too, the short payment or the wrong utilization of credit has to be for any reason other than the reason of fraud or any willful misstatement or suppression of fact to evade tax. And if there is a suppression of fact or willful misstatement or there is a fraud, then the notice is to be issued under section 74. And wherever the notices are issued under section 74, these cases are not eligible for availing the benefit of this amnesty scheme. So that is very clear. Now coming to section 73, subsection 3. The basic condition is that where a notice has been issued for any period under subsection 1, the proper officer may serve a statement containing the details of tax not paid or short paid or erroneously refunded or input tax credit wrongly availed or utilized for such periods other than those covered under subsection 1 on the person chargeable with tax. For issuing statement of demand, for serving statement of demand, the basic condition is that there should be a show cause notice which already issued to the same person on the same issue. If the issue is different, if the period is different, then the department has to issue another show cause notice. But if the issue is already covered in any of the show cause notice, for subsequent period, fresh show cause notice is not required. Only a statement of demand has to be issued, and for amnesty scheme, all such statements are also covered for the purpose of amnesty schemes. Now, again, we go back to the eligibility conditions. This is the first condition, that there has to be a show cause notice under section 73. Now, the second condition, if show cause notice is issued, the taxpayer has filed a reply also, personal hearing is also attended, but the proper officer or the adjudicating authority is not satisfied with the reply given by the SSC, then he has to issue order under section 73 subsection 9. What this section says, as per section 73 subsection 9, the proper officer shall, after considering the representation, if any, made by the person, determine the amount of tax, interest and penalty due from such person and issue an order. So basically, The condition is that he has to basically take into the consideration the representation, the reply submitted by the SSC. Secondly, mandatorily he has to offer the opportunity of personal hearing to the SSC before issuing the order. And of course, the personal hearing, only 3 adjournments can be given. There are a number of other conditions also, but it is mandatory for the adjudicating authority to give personal hearing opportunity of offer opportunity of personal hearing to the SSC before issuing any order. Now, this is the second condition. That the first is show cause notice is issued, but the order is not issued. All such cases are covered. Second, the second is show cause notice is issued. The taxpayer has replied to the show cause notice, but the adjudicating authority is not satisfied with the reply, and therefore he has confirmed the demand by issuing the order under section 73 subsection 9. That is second condition. Now the third condition is that after getting the adjudicating order, the SSC has filed the appeal before appellate authority under subsection 11 of section 107 or subsection 1 of section 108. Now, what is 107 and what is section 108? Let us try to understand that also. Because appeal is filed before appellate authority and appeal is filed under section 107. Under section 107 of Central GST Act, the appeal is to be filed before the appellate authority. For state tax authorities, the appellate authority is Joint Commissioner. And for central GST, the appellate authority is Additional Commissioner or Commissioner, whatever may be the case. So the order, the third condition says that in case of the appeal, the appellate authority also should have issued the order under section 107. Of course, SSC is free to file appeal against the appellate authority's order before tribunal, but so far tribunal is not not functional, and therefore at this stage in the amnesty provisions there is no mention about the order passed by the tribunal against in any of the disputed cases. So this amnesty scheme is restricted up to the order issued by the appellate authority under subsection 11 of section 107. And the fourth criteria is the third criteria, the second part is that order issued under section 108 subsection 1. Now, what is subsection 1 of section 108? That under GST law, there is a provision to appoint the revisional authority. One thing we have to keep in mind that the order of the officer passing order, the authority passing order, the adjudicating authority passing his order cannot revise his own order, cannot review his own order because he has no powers. So for revision, we have to refer that order to the revisional authority. Now that revisional authority means an authority appointed or authorized for revision of decision or order referred to in section 108. In 107, section 107, appellate authority has been appointed. But for each and every case, the SSC need not file appeal. For correction of mistakes, the SSC can file the revision application under section 108, and the authority, revisional authority, can rectify the errors. But he can rectify the errors to a limited extent. He cannot basically uh, pass the order or pass any other order against the adjudicating or against the order passed by adjudicating authority. Only to a certain extent, only in few cases, the order can be revised by the revisional authorities, and he has to pass order under section 108. Now, these are the basic parameters or conditions for availing the benefit under this amnesty scheme. I'll just repeat once again. Number one, show cause notice has been issued under section 73, or statement is issued under section 73, but no order is passed by adjudicating authorities. These cases are basically eligible for amnesty scheme. Second scenario is the show cause notice is issued. The SSC has submitted the reply, attended personal hearing, and the adjudicating order or adjudicating authority has passed the order, commonly known as order in original. So where OIO, order in original, is passed by the adjudicating authority, those cases are also covered under this amnesty scheme. And the third scenario is that against the order in original, the agreed by the order in original, the SSC has filed appeal before appellate authority, and the appellate authority has passed the order which is against the SSC. If the order is passed in favor of SSC, then there is no question of going for amnesty scheme. But where there is an adverse order issued by appellate authority or revisional authorities, and if the SSC wants to resolve the dispute, he is eligible for this amnesty scheme. He has got a chance to resolve the dispute by way of making application under this amnesty scheme. So this is the eligibility criteria, who is eligible or not. Now, even though the section does not provide, there is a fourth scenario where the cases are, or where the cases are eligible, where the SSC is eligible to file application under this amnesty scheme, and that is situation where the original notice was issued under section 74. That means originally the proper officer, the adjudicating authority felt that there is a suppression of fact, and the proper officer felt that there is a suppression of fact or fraud or misstatement, and therefore he issued notice under section 74. But the appellate authority or appellate authority feels that there is no suppression of fact, then the appellate authority can direct the adjudicating authority to reconsider the issue under section 73. So wherever the original show cause notice is issued on the grounds of suppression of fact, etc., and if the authority feels that there is no suppression, there is a genuine mistake, then he can basically convert that notice under section 73, and all those cases also can be basically covered for the purpose of amnesty scheme. And here, if the case is not decided, show cause notice is issued under section 74, but the issue is not decided, what is to be done? For that also, the clarification has been issued by the GST department that you have to approach to the appellate authority, get the instructions from him that this show cause notice is wrongly issued under section 74 and there is no suppression of fact, but there is a short payment or there is a wrong utilization of credit or wrong availment of credit, then that notice will be treated as if it is issued under section 73, and then it will be basically covered for the purpose of amnesty scheme. So this is the eligibility criteria. Now, we have seen the relevant provisions also. Now coming to further eligibility conditions. There are few more conditions also, that the notice issued under section 73 subsection 5 or order is issued under section 107 of the CGST Act demanding or confirming tax liability for the period from 1st July 2017 to 31st March 2020. If the show cause notice covers the period beyond 31st March 2020, then up to 31st March 2020, the benefit can be availed. But for the subsequent period, the benefit of this amnesty scheme is not available, but there is a condition that the assessee has to pay the entire tax demanded even for the subsequent period also, and then only he can apply for waiver of interest and penalty under this amnesty scheme. It looks little bit or it looks very uh, confusing, or probably the intention is also not understand whether government wants really to pass on the benefit to the assessees or not. Because for the period after 1st April 2020, if the assessee wants to dispute that, he has no choice or he has no option. He has to pay the full amount of basic tax, and then only he can apply under amnesty scheme. I think these provisions needs to be basically reviewed, and some clarification has to be issued, or some clarification has to be given by the Central Board of Indirect Taxes on this point. The said person has paid the full amount of tax payable as per notice or statement or order before the notified date. So he has to make payment before 31st of March 2025, and then after that he can file the application for waiver of interest and penalty in the ordinary cases, that is within 3 months. So first you make payment before March, and then you get 3 months to file application under amnesty scheme. So this is the condition for availing the benefit under this one. Now there is one more criteria, that as I mentioned, that the order is originally passed under section 74, and then the assessee has to apply for redetermination of cases which are issued, which are or where orders are passed under section 74, and in that case the time limit will be 6 months from the date of communication of the redetermination order by the proper officer under section 73. So first you get it converted from section 74 to section 73, and then from the date of communication you get 6 months for filing the application. So here the word is used from the date of communication. And what is the method, what is the mode of communication? No assessee gets the order by post or by email. All the communication is done through GST portal. So every day the assessee has to basically refer it to the portal, or go to the portal and see whether any communication has been done. Because normally show cause notice, orders, everything is uploaded on the portal, and that is the only method department is following. Of course, there is condition that for each order, for each show cause notice, for each communication, DIN number is mandatory. And you will also find that DIN number is given to every communication made by the government. If there is no DIN number, then probably that communication will not be taken as a valid communication. So DIN number has to be ensured for every order, for every communication, and only where the cases are or where the communication is with valid DIN number, DIN, that is the proper communication. And here the date of communication on the basis of various circulars and decisions, the date of communication means the date on which the order or the notice is uploaded on the GST portal, that is to be treated as date of communication. And from that day, the SSC gets 3 months or 6 months period to file the application under amnesty scheme. So this is when to apply, where to apply, and who can apply. These provisions are given. As I mentioned, the last date for payment is 31st March 2025. And again, it is clarified that however, where the tax is to be redetermined under section 73 instead of section 74, the last date for payment would be the date ending on completion of 6 months from the date of issuance of the redetermination order by the proper officer under section 73. Here, the appellate commissioner or the revisional authority will not issue order directly. They will basically remand back the case with the remark to the proper officer to redetermine the case under section 73, and the proper officer has to issue order or notice under section 73 as the case may be. So this procedure has to be followed, and in such cases you get extra time to file application under amnesty scheme. Now, there are certain exclusions that the scheme is not applicable to in certain conditions, in certain scenarios. And let us try to understand those scenarios. The scheme will not be applicable, number one, in respect of any amount payable on account of erroneous refund. The provision has been made under section 128A subsection 2. If the refund is wrongly granted to the SSC and subsequently department basically has issued the notice to the SSC that the refund has been given erroneously, and you basically that amount has to be repaid by the SSC. These cases will not be covered under this amnesty scheme. That means the department will recover the amount which is erroneously refunded to the SSC along with interest and penalty if any. So that all these erroneous refund cases are not covered under the scheme. Secondly, where an appeal or writ petition filed by the person is pending and he has not withdrawn the same on or before the date notified under section 128 or 128A3, the SSC cannot apply under this amnesty scheme. So the basic condition that the appeal, if the appeal is filed, it is to be withdrawn. There are number of cases because the law was not clear, lot of confusion was there, the tribunal is not set up. So there are number of writ petitions pending with various high courts also on various issues, particularly income tax credit. There are number of writ petitions pending before high court, and in or the appeal is pending before the appellate authority. Here, one of the condition is that before applying under this amnesty scheme, the SSC has to withdraw that appeal or withdraw that writ petition, attach the document of withdrawal, either order or if the order is not received, application made for withdrawal of that appeal along with the application under amnesty scheme, then only the application will be entertained. Otherwise, that application will be treated as void and he will not get any benefit of this amnesty scheme. Third one is, third exclusion is the notices issued under Customs Act 1962 for IGST payable on imported goods. IGST on imported goods is payable under Customs Act. It's in the place of CVD, and therefore, for demanding the differential IGST on the imported goods, the notices have been issued under Customs Act and not under CGST Act. And where the notices have been issued under Customs Act, these cases are not eligible for benefit under this amnesty scheme. That also we have to keep in mind. Now, what are the benefits and consequences? If somebody applies under amnesty scheme, what are the benefits and what are the consequences? As per section 128A subsection 1, no interest and penalty shall be payable and the case will be deemed to be concluded subject to conditions as may be prescribed. So the penalty will be waived, the interest also will be waived, and the substantial amount pertains to interest because there is no cap on the interest. There is a cap on penalty equal to amount demanded or equal to basic tax demanded. But there is no cap on interest amount, and therefore every day the interest meter is running, and 18% interest is also a very high rate of interest. So the entire interest and penalty shall be waived under this scheme, provided the basic amount is paid by the SSC. But the consequence, the condition is that once you apply under this amnesty scheme, and once the order is passed under this amnesty scheme, the SSC cannot file appeal against the order passed under the amnesty scheme. Against the concluded order, neither SSC nor department can file appeal in the case of order passed under the amnesty scheme. That also we have to keep in mind. So before applying for waiver of interest and penalty, one has to basically think twice that if the department does not accept your application or reject your application, then what is to be done in that case? In that case, the original order or original show cause notice will be restored, and the SSC has to basically file appeal or reply, and he has to go through the regular procedure. That also we have to keep in mind. Now, this is the general idea about the scheme, that who is eligible, what are the benefits, and which are the cases covered and which are the cases not covered under amnesty scheme. Now let us have a cursory look on the various formats issued to avail the benefit, or for this amnesty scheme, government has specified seven formats. What are those formats? Who has to file or who has to basically make application in which format? That also, for that purpose also, let us have a cursory look on the various formats prescribed under Rule 164 of the CGST Rules 2017. The first format, the title of the format is GST SPL 01. Now, what is the SPL? SPL, no long form is given, but it's a special provision related to litigation. And the word is also used as special provision. GST SPL 01 form is to be filled up by the person or by any person who is eligible for waiver of interest or penalty or both. in respect of notice or a statement issued under Section 73 and where no order under Section 73(9) has been issued. That means in case of all open show cause notices where the order is not passed, the form SPL01 has to be filed by the SSC. What are the contents of SPL01? That also we'll try to understand. Second format is GST SPL02. Now, who has to basically apply under this SPL02 format? That any person who is eligible for waiver of interest or penalty or both in respect of orders passed by the adjudicating authority and where no order is issued under Section 107 or 108. That means no order is issued by the appellate authority or no order is issued by the revisional authority, but the order in original is passed by adjudicating authority. In those cases, GST SPL02 form is prescribed. GST SPL01 form is where the show cause notice is issued, but no further order is issued. And where the further order is issued, then the application is to be made in GST SPL02 form. There are certain provisions also that the first provision is provided that the payment towards such tax demanded shall be made only by crediting the amount in electronic liability register against the debit entry created by such order. Now, even if the demand is accepted, the demand cannot be paid by DRC 03. Even if DRC 03 is filed, it has to be get converted into the electronic liability register only, and all these cases will be settled where the payment is made through electronic liability register. Of course, the available balance of input tax credit can also be used for settling the dues, but first the electronic liability register, the entry has to be, debit entry has to be created, and then only the payment is to be made through that electronic liability register. So payment can be made either by cash or by utilizing input tax credit. There is no restriction to make payment only through cash. If there is a sufficient balance, in the electronic credit ledger, that can be used. But we have to also keep in mind that if the cases are pertaining to the tax liability, pertaining to tax under reverse charge mechanism, then for reverse charge mechanism, the input tax credit cannot be utilized. In all those cases, the payment has to be made through cash, in cash or through DRC 03. Then you have to get it converted into electronic liability register, and then the application can be made under the amnesty scheme. This is one proviso. Secondly, if the payment towards such tax demanded has been made through DRC 03, then first an application has to be made in the form DRC 03A, and then you have to get it converted into electronic credit register. Again, that debit entry created for the said demand before filing the application in form GST SPL02. So these basic provisions, these two conditions we have to keep in mind, that for reverse charge mechanism tax liability, payment has to be made only in cash. In many cases, the SSC has made payment through DRC 03. Even in the past also, or after the scheme has been announced. So if the payment is made through DRC 03, then first he has to apply in the form DRC 03A for getting that payment converted into electronic credit register against the debit entry created for the said demand, and this procedure has to be completed before filing the application in form GST SPL 02. So before filing the application, check whether the payment has been made. The payment could have been made for the deposit or partially liability has been accepted. In all those cases, if the payment is made through DRC 03, get it converted into electronic credit register by applying in form DRC 03A and then apply under amnesty scheme. So these two conditions we have to keep in mind before applying under amnesty scheme where the orders are already passed. Then coming to GST SPL 03, this format is prescribed where the proper officer is of the view that the application made in form GST SPL 01 or GST SPL 02 is liable to be rejected as not being eligible for waiver of interest or penalty or both as per section 128. He shall issue a notice on a common portal to the applicant in form GST SPL 03 within 3 months from the date of receipt of the said application, and shall also give the applicant an opportunity of being heard. So there are two things. If the proper officer is of the opinion that the application is to be rejected, of course there are various grounds. One of that, the payment is not made in time. Number two, the notice is not issued under section 73. And there could be some this type of reasons. So if the proper officer will issue the notice in GST SPL 03 form, that notice will be communicated to the applicant by uploading it on the portal, common portal, and it is mandatory for the proper officer to give an opportunity of personal hearing to the SSC, to the applicant before the case is finally decided. So if no hearing is granted, then obviously there is a breach of natural justice, principle of natural justice. The SSC can basically go into the appeal. But it is mandatory for the proper officer to grant an opportunity before the application is decided otherwise. If the proper officer feels that the SSC is eligible for this scheme, then he will not issue any notice under this format SPL 03. He will issue direct order. But if he feels that the application is liable to be rejected, then he has to issue notice under form GST SPL 03. And on receiving the notice, the applicant has to file a reply to the said notice portal in form SPL 04 within a period of 1 month from the date of receipt of the said notice. So SPL 03 is the notice. SPL 04 has to be filed by the applicant in response to the notice issued in SPL 03. And the time limit is not 3 months. The time limit for replying is 1 month from the date of communication. Date of receipt is date of communication. That is date of uploading it on the common portal. From that, within a period of 1 month, the SSC, the applicant has to reply to the notice. So every day, the SSC has to basically go to the portal and see whether any notice is issued or not. Of course, there are certain softwares also developed by various companies like Microvista and others that every day they will send, or as and when there is a notice issued by the department to the SSC, the SSC gets intimation through that software about the notice received or any communication received to him. and on that basis he can refer it to he can uh, go to the portal and get the details of the notices. So that also is one of the method, that instead of going to the portal every day, through this software also you get the intimation, and you can refer to the notice and reply to the notice itself. Then coming to the form GST SPL 05. This form is to be used in the cases if the proper officer is satisfied that the applicant is eligible for waiver of interest or penalty as per section 128A. He shall issue an order in form GST SPL 05 on the common portal, accepting the said application and concluding the proceedings under section 128A. So if the proper officer is satisfied, then there is no question of GST SPL 03 and SPL 05. On the basis of GST SPL 01 or 02, the proper officer will directly issue an order under GST SPL 05, accepting the said application and concluding the proceeding under section 128A. After that, there won't be any notice for recovery. The interest and penalty will be waived in total. Next is in cases where the order in form GST SPL 05 is issued by the proper officer, the liability created in the part 2 of the electronic liability register shall be modified accordingly. So if the amount confirmed by the proper officer is less, the assessee has to make payment through electronic liability register. Then coming to the GST SPL 07, I am not referring to GST SPL 06, because after understanding GST SPL 07, then we come to SPL 06. SPL 07 is to be used in the cases if the proper officer is not satisfied with the reply of the applicant. The proper officer shall issue an order in the form GST SPL 07 rejecting the said application, that is within 3 months from the receipt application. That means first he has issued the notice in GST SPL 03. The assessee has replied in form GST SPL 04. And after considering the reply, the proper officer feels that the assessee is not eligible for this scheme or the benefit is not to be granted to the assessee, then he has to issue an order in form GST SPL 07 rejecting the said application, and that too within 3 months from the receipt of the application. Here let us try to have a look on the time limit prescribed. From the date of application, the proper officer has to issue a notice in GST SPL 03. He has to give 1 month time limit to the assessee for replying to the show cause notice, and he has to also conclude the case within a period of 3 months from receipt of the application. So the schedule looks to be very tight. The reply also has to be given well within the prescribed time as early as possible so that the matter can be concluded and the assessee is free to take further steps in the case. That also we have to keep in mind. And if no order is issued by the proper officer within the time limit specified, what is the consequence? If no order is issued by the proper officer within the time limit specified, then the application in form GST SPL 01 or SPL 02, as the case may be, shall be deemed to be approved and the proceeding shall be deemed to be concluded. So after filing the application in form GST 01, SPL 01 or GST SPL 02, if the order is not issued within the prescribed time limit of 3 months, then it shall be deemed to be approved and the proceeding shall be deemed to be concluded. So it is for the proper officer to issue the order within a period of 3 months. In the absence of order within 3 months, your application is deemed to be have been accepted by the department and the benefit is granted to you. So that is the meaning of this provision. Now, in cases where no appeal is filed against the order in form GST SPL 07 within the time period prescribed in subsection 1 of section 107, that means SPL 07 order, you get 3 months time to file appeal before appellate authority. The original appeal, if any, filed by applicant against the order mentioned in 128A and withdrawn for the purpose of filing of application in form GST SPL 02 shall be restored. So if no appeal is filed against GST SPL 07, the original appeal shall be restored. So you go to the point number 1 or back to square 1. So that provision is also there. Now order for rejection of application in form GST SPL 07. What are the reasons? First of all, the proper officer has to issue a speaking order containing details of application, that is SPL 01 or SPL 02, or notice, not or, and notice under SPL 03, and also reply to notice SPL 04. The reason for rejection he has to give in writing. The officer cannot simply write that the reply is not satisfactory and therefore the application is rejected. There has to be a speaking order, and the reason for rejection could be number 1, full payment is not made. There is a short payment against the liability created or the application made. Number 2, the payment is made after the date notified in section 128A, that means 31st March 2025. The payment is made after that. Then the application is liable for rejection. Number 3, notice or order about sections under other than section 73. So there are various situations. One of the situations we discussed, that if the notice is issued under section 74, you cannot apply for waiver of interest and penalty. Now, there could be other situations also. For example, the dispute is related to e-way bill and the penalty is levied for non-compliance of the provision. In that case, the notice is not issued under section 73 or the penalty is not issued under section 73 or 122, but the penalty is levied under section 129, and those cases, e-way bill cases, are not covered under this scheme. That is my understanding, because it is issued, the notice is not issued under section 73, and therefore all those cases are not covered for the purpose of amnesty scheme. Then one more reason could be appeal or writ petition filed is not withdrawn. There are some assessees, they apply and they forget to withdraw the appeal or writ petition, or they wait for the decision of the proper officer whether the application is admitted or not. But if the appeal is not withdrawn, then the application is liable for rejection. The amnesty scheme benefit will not be given to those assessees. And there could be some other reasons also. But we have to keep in mind that this order is an appealable order. We can file appeal against that order, against the order of rejection. In case no appeal is filed against this order of rejection, the appeal that was withdrawn for filing the waiver application shall be restored as per the provisions of section 1, rule 164, sub rule 15, sub rule A. So if it is rejected, the amnesty application is rejected, the original case will be restored, the original appeal will be restored. And then we come to the form GST SPL 06. GST SPL 0 form is to be used in cases where an appeal is filed against the order in form GST SPL 07 for rejection of application for waiver of interest or penalty or both. So against the order issued under in form GST 07, the appeal is to be filed in form GST 06, GST SPL 06. If the appellate authority has held that proper officer has wrongly rejected the application for waiver of interest or penalty or both in form GST SPL 07, the said appellate authority shall pass an order in form GST SPL 07. So this GST SPL 06 is for the order to be passed by the appellate authority. So appellate authority has to pass order in form GST SPL 06 against the appeal filed against order in GST SPL 07. And that also has to be uploaded on the common portal accepting the said application and concluding the proceedings under section 128A. So GST SPL 01, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Who has to use this form, when to use, what is the use of these forms, that also we have discussed. Now let us go to the form GST SPL 08. If the appellate authority has held that proper officer has rightly rejected the application for waiver of interest or penalty or both in form GST SPL 07, the original appeal, if any, filed by the applicant against the order and withdrawn for filing application in form GST SPL 02 in accordance with subsection 3 of section 128 shall be restored subject to conditions that the applicant files an undertaking electronically on the portal in form GST SPL 08 within a period of 3 months from the date of issuance of the order by the appellate authority in form GST APL 04, and he has neither filed nor intends to file any appeal against the said order of the appellate authority. So appellate authority issues the order, and in that case, the applicant has to give undertaking, that too electronically on the portal, that he will not file appeal against that order passed by the appellate authority. And here form GST SPL 08 comes into the picture. So these are the various forms prescribed under the amnesty schemes. Now we'll discuss one form. What are the contents of GST SPL 01? That we'll discuss. And similar information is required to be used while applying under form GST SPL 02 also, except the appeal order number. So application for waiver of interest or penalty or both is to be made in form GST SPL 01. And GST SPL form has various tables. In table number 1, the applicant has to provide the basic details of the taxpayer, that is GST number or temporary ID or temporary UN number also. Then legal name of the business, mobile number, email address, address, and jurisdiction. So basic information related to applicant is to be provided in table 1. In table 2, details of the notice, that is notice or statement number, date of issuance of notice or statement, section under which notice or statement is issued. Number 4, whether any writ petition is filed against the notice statement before High Court or Supreme Court. If yes, whether the order for withdrawal of writ petition is issued. Then, if not, the application details are to be provided, and whether the notice or statement involves demand of erroneous refunds. So these are the details to be provided in table 2 in GST SPL 01. In GST SPL 02 also similar details are to be provided. Additionally, the order in original number, then order in appeal number, or order number, order passed by revisional authority. These numbers are also to be quoted. So information in GST SPL 01 and SPL 02 is more or less same, except the details of the orders passed by various authorities. Then in table number 3, the period and amount has to be mentioned. The application application pertains to which period, then amount demanded in the notice or this statement, and out of the amount mentioned, demand only to ITC, which has been denied solely on account of contravention of section 16(4) and not on any other grounds, and which has now become eligible as per section 16 subsection 5 or section 16 subsection 6, if any. Now, what are the section 16(5) and 16(6) of the CGST Act 2017? Section 16(5) and section 16 subsection 5 and section 16 subsection 6 have been inserted in the CGST Act with retrospective effect. And as per section 16 subsection 5, the time limit for availing input tax credit has been prescribed up to November 2021. So, if the credit ITC pertaining to period 1st July 2017 to March 2021, the time limit for availing credit has been enhanced up to 30th November 2021. And as per our experience, in most of the notices, the notices are issued for contravention of section 16(4). That is, the input tax credit is not availed within the prescribed time limit. Earlier, the time limit was September of the subsequent year, and then it was basically changed to November. But in this case, section 16 subsection 5, there is a special provision that the time limit is enhanced up to 30th November 2021 for availing input tax credit pertaining to period July 17 to March 21. So that is section 16(5). Now, if the demand has been made for contravention of section 16(4), automatically that demand becomes not sustainable because of the insertion of section 16(5), and that much amount has to be reduced for calculating the final liability from the amount demanded in the show cause notice, and the application has to be made for the balance amount only. Now, coming to section 16 subsection 6. Again, there is a typical provision that in many cases The registration of the taxpayers was cancelled because he has not filed the returns, he has not paid the taxes, and the applications were made for restoration of the registration. And in that case, again, there is a time limit provided that the after restoration also, the credit can be availed within a period of 6 months from the date of restoration. So if the credit is denied for this purpose, by virtue of section 16 subsection 6, it becomes admissible automatically. So this amount is also to be reduced from the total tax demanded in the show cause notice, and for balance amount, the application has to be filed. That is table number 3. And table number 4, amount paid through DRC 03, we have to mention there that this much amount is paid through DRC 03, and application in DRC 03A has to be made for uh, transferring it to the electronic liability register. Table number 5 is a declaration by taxpayer. That is, first, he has to give undertaking that he has not filed any writ petition against the said notice, or if he has filed, he has applied for withdrawal, or there is a High Court order also that the applicant has withdrawn the writ petition. Number 2, he has to also give undertaking to agree that no appeal shall be filed against the order concluding demand proceedings issued under section 128 in any form in future. So undertaking has to be given that whatever order is issued in this dispute resolution special drive amnesty scheme, he will not file appeal in future also. And third is declaration about truthfulness and no suppression of facts in the information provided. So these 3 undertakings he has to give in table number 5. And finally, he has to sign, and again he has to give verification also that whatever is mentioned above is true to the knowledge of the applicant, and he has to sign, and this way the application has to be filed on the portal, and then the process will start. Now, what are the documents to be submitted along with applications? That also we need to understand that number 1, self-certified copy of the notice or statement. You need not get it, you need not to go to the notary or the departmental officer to get the attestation. Self-certified copy is sufficient. Number 2, proof of payment made through GST DRC 03. That also you have to attach along with the application. And number 3, proof of withdrawal of writ petition or application filed for withdrawal of writ petition. So if there is an order for withdrawal of writ petition, that order has to be attached. And if the order for withdrawal has not been issued, the application has to be, application made for withdrawal has to be attached, submitted along with the application. And any other document relevant to the case. If SSC feels that there are some other documents relevant to the case, he can submit it along with the application. SSC has to sign, and he has to also provide his email address, that is applicant's email address and mobile number, and the application has to be filed on the common GST portal for this amnesty scheme. So this was the general idea about the amnesty scheme, that eligibility criteria and various forms. Now there are certain important things which we have to keep in mind, that the details of notice, as regard details of notice or statement, in case the notice or statement is available on portal, application reference number of the same needs to be filed. So if the notice or statement is available on portal, the number, DIN number or the reference number has to be quoted in the application. And in case the notice is not available on the portal, manually notice is issued. In that case, reference of manually issued notice or statement needs to be given in the application filed in this one. Now, this is one. And number two, while calculating the amount deductible on account of not being payable in accordance with subsection 5 or 6 of section 16 from the amount payable in terms of notice or statement or order under section 73 as the case may be, the applicant is required to ensure that amount is deducted only where input tax credit has been solely on account of contravention of section 16(4) and not on any other grounds. That means 16(4) that the credit is not availed within the prescribed time limit. Only that much amount which is earlier denied and now became admissible under as per the provisions of section 16 subsection 5 or subsection 6, that is the time limited enhanced, or in the cases of cancellation of registration, the additional period is granted for availing credit. Only those cases has to be considered for reducing the tax liability. No other case has to be considered for reducing the liability from the amount demanded in the show cause notice or from the tax confirmed in the order passed by appellate authority or revisional authority. So these are the things which we have to keep in mind before applying for this amnesty scheme. And this is the general idea about the amnesty scheme. Of course, there are few more conditions also, that where the notice or order also partially contains a demand for an erroneous refund, the application will be filed after depositing the full amount of tax demanded. That means if the notice partially contains a demand for an erroneous refund, assessee has to make payment of that erroneous refund also, and then only the application will have to be made. So first you pay the amount and then department will consider your application. Number two, where the period involved in the demand overlaps with a period other than covered in the scheme, that is 2017-18 to 2019-20, the application can be filed only after payment of full tax demanded. As I mentioned in the beginning itself, if the notice is covering the period from 2017 to let us say 2022, the amount demanded for the period from 1st July 2020 to maybe 31st March 22 or whatever may be, that amount also has to be paid, and then only the application can be made for waiver of interest and penalty for the limited period, that is 17-18 to 19-20. So you pay the full amount of as per the notice and then apply for waiver of interest and penalty for the part of the amount. That is the meaning of this rule 164 sub rule 4. And here, according to me, the intention of the government, whether to give full benefit to the assessee or not, is not known. Because first you have to pay for the amount for which you can dispute, you can go into the litigation. That amount is also required to be paid, and then only your application will be considered for the partial amount and covering the part period. So this looks to be not good provision for the SSCs, and the amount payable before the application shall be what remains after deducting the amount not payable in section 16.5, 16.6. That also we discussed. So these are the basic conditions, and this is the general idea about the amnesty scheme. Now, let us have a cursory look on the various queries raised or FAQs, whatever answers department has given, that also we'll try to understand. Uh, we have got another 30-35 minutes, so we'll discuss that also. I have a cursory look on the various clarifications issued in this regards by the department. Uh, Circular number 238 oblique 32 oblique 2024 dash CGST dated 15/10/2024 has been issued by Central Board of Indirect Taxes, and clarification on various queries, various doubts raised by the SSCs or various professional bodies on various forums. The department has tried to give clarification with respect to those queries. The first issue is whether the benefit provided under Section 128 will be applicable to the taxpayers who have paid their tax component in full before the date on which the said section has come into effect. So you have already made the payment. And in that case, if the payment is already made, whether the SSC can apply under amnesty scheme, that yes, as per the clarification, yes, even if the payment is made before the introduction of this amnesty scheme, that is 1st November 2024, those cases will also be eligible for the amnesty scheme. Now, in some of the cases, the SSCs have paid partial tax, which is more than the amount to be settled. In that case, whatever amount is paid earlier, whether it pertains to interest or penalty or basic tax demand, will not be refunded. That amount, whatever you have paid is paid. There is no refund of those cases. But whatever amount is paid even before 1st November 2024, the benefit can be availed by applying uh, under this amnesty scheme. That was the issue number one. Issue number two, whether amount recovered by the tax officers as tax due from any other person on behalf of taxpayer against a particular demand can be considered as tax paid toward the same for the purpose of Section 128A. The answer is yes. Now, here, what could be the cases? In some of the cases, department has uh, initiated the recovery proceedings, recovered the amount from the banks by attaching the bank account, or recovered the amount from the customers also, that whatever amount is payable to the taxpayer, department has recovered the tax portion and balance amount uh, was paid to the taxpayer. In all those cases, even if the amount is recovered from any other person, maybe from bank, maybe from customer or any other person, that amount also will be considered as paid by the SSC. And in those cases also, the SSC is eligible to file application under amnesty scheme. That is the second clarification. Now, issue number three, whether the amount recovered by the tax officers as interest or penalty or both pertaining to demand under Section 73 pertaining to financial year 17, 18, 18, 19 and 1920 can be adjusted against the tax amount payable towards the demand made under Section 73 pertaining to the said financial year. The answer is no. The interest and penalty paid earlier cannot be adjusted against the basic demand. And if you have paid that amount, no refund of such amount of interest or penalty or both is available. And that is the clarification. One, it cannot be adjusted towards the amount of tax payable. Number two, that is also not refundable. So whatever amount you have paid as an interest or penalty that is paid, you don't have to think about that. You have to simply forget those amounts you have paid. Issue number 4. Whether the benefit provided under Section 128A will be applicable in cases where the tax due has already been paid and the notice or demand orders under Section 73 only pertaining to interest and penalty or penalty. Yes, if the order or the notice is only pertaining to interest and penalty, the same shall be considered for availing the benefit of Section 128A. So even if there is no demand for the basic tax amount, the demands only for penalty and interest are eligible for benefit under amnesty scheme. But again, the condition is that the notice should have been issued under Section 73 and not under Section 74. So that is issue number 4. Issue number 5. Whether the benefit under Section 128 is available if the taxpayer intends to avail partial waiver of interest or penalty or both on certain issues by making part payment of the amount demanded in the notice, statement or order as the case may be, and opts to litigate for the remaining issues, the answer is no. If he has to apply, then he has to make application when the full amount of tax demanded in the notice or statement is paid or order is paid. He cannot opt for the partial issues or part of the uh, partial demand, and partial demand he cannot litigate on the remaining issues. If he wants to go into the under amnesty scheme, he has to accept all the amount demanded in the notice, statement or order and pay the full amount, and then only he can apply for waiver of interest and penalty. Number 6, where the notice or order involves multiple periods ranging from the period for which waiver provided in Section 128 is applicable and includes some other tax periods for which such waiver is not applicable, that is period after 1st July 2020. Whether the benefit of waiver of interest and penalty or both under Section 128 can be availed for the period covered under Section 128A. If so, what is the tax amount payable for claiming waiver under Section 128A? I have already discussed this issue, and that the taxpayer is eligible to apply for waiver of interest or penalty or both in such cases where the demand notice or order spans tax periods covered under Section 128A and those not covered under the said section. However, as per sub rule 4 of Rule 164, the taxpayer shall be required to pay the full amount of tax demanded in the notice, statement or order as the case may be to avail the benefit of waiver of interest or penalty or both under Section 128. So you accept the full demand and then apply for partial waiver. That is the meaning of Rule 6, sub-rule 4 of Rules 164. Issue number 7. Where the notice or statement order issued under Section 73 involves multiple issues and one of them is regarding demand of erroneous refund, whether an application can be filed for waiver of interest or penalty or both under Section 128A. If so, what is the tax amount payable for claiming waiver under Section 128A? That is amnesty scheme. Yes, the clarification is as per sub-rule 3 of Rule 164, the taxpayer shall be required to pay the full amount of tax demanded in the notice or statement or order as the case may be including on account of demand of erroneous refund to avail benefit of waiver of interest or penalty or both under section 128A. Further, in such cases, waiver of interest or penalty or both under section 128A shall only be available in respect of tax demand other than pertaining to demand of erroneous period. So first you deposit the entire amount, you not deposit, first you pay the entire amount and then ask for the waiver of payment, including erroneous refund has to be made. And then you will be eligible to get benefit under this scheme. Query number 8. In cases where department has filed an appeal against the order and the appellate authority or the appellate tribunal or the court or the revisional authority has issued an order enhancing the tax liability, and in the meanwhile the proper officer has issued an order in form GST SPL 05 under section 128, and the taxpayer has not paid the additional amount of tax liability within the specified time limit, what will be the status of conclusion of proceeding under section 128A? So if the liability is increased, then he has to pay the additional liability also within 3 months from the date of the said order, and then only he will be eligible for the benefit under this section 128A, that is amnesty scheme. Issue number 9. Subsection 3 of section 128A refers to only appeal or writ petition. In this regard, whether matters where SLP, special leave petition, filed by the applicant is pending before Honorable Supreme Court, what is the procedure to be followed by the taxpayer to avail the waiver of interest and penalty? Yes, in such cases also the applicant will be required to withdraw the said special leave petition and file an application under form GST SPL 01. If the SLP is filed against show cause notice, then SPL 01 has to be filed. If the SLP is filed against appeal order or appellate order, then form SPL 02 has to be filed. But first, that SLP, special leave petition, has to be withdrawn, and then only the application under this amnesty scheme can be made. Issue number 10. Whether the benefit provided under section 128 will be available for matters involving IGST and compensation cess also. It's not restricted only to the CGST and SGST. The benefit is available for the matters involving IGST also and compensation cess also. But IGST, if it is paid under Customs Act, then the benefit is not available. That has been clarified by the department also. Then query number 11. Transition credit. Whether section 128A covers cases involving demand of irregularly availed transition credit. The transitional clarification is the transitional credit is considered to be availed on the date on which the said credit amount is credited in the electronic credit ledger. And it is clear that any demand in respect of transitional credit wrongly availed, whether wholly or partly, can be made under section 73 or, as the case may be, under section 74. So if the demand is issued under section 73, then you can take benefit. But transitional credit, if it is availed by means of fraud or suppression of fact or misstatement, then the benefit is not available to the SSC. Issue number 12. Whether section 128A will cover waiver of penalties under other provisions, late fee, redemption fine, etc. No. It is clarified that any penalty, including penalty under section 73, section 122, section 122, etc., demanded under demand notice, statement, order issued under Section 73 is covered under the waiver provided under Section 128A. However, late fee, redemption fine, etc. are not covered under the waiver provided under Section 128A. Late fee is for late filing of returns. Redemption fine is in lieu of the confiscation of the goods. So these fines and late fees are not covered under the amnesty scheme. Full payment in respect with respect to redemption fine and late fee has to be made. One more thing that, as I mentioned earlier also, the demands pertaining to e-way bill are issued under Section 128, 129 penalty, etc. They are not covered for the purpose of the amnesty scheme. Issue number 13. Whether payment to avail waiver under Section 128 can be made by utilizing ITC. The answer is yes. Yes, you can utilize the balance, ITC balance, but only thing, first you have to make entry in the electronic credit ledger, uh, transfer it to the electronic liability register, and then you can utilize that amount for the purpose of settling the, or for the purpose of payment under this. Here, one thing is to be kept in mind that for reverse charge mechanism, this ITC cannot be utilized. And secondly, the erroneous refunds also, the ITC ledger cannot be, ITC balance cannot be utilized. That has been clarified by the by CBIC in the next para. Then issue number 14. Whether the benefit of waiver under Section 128A be availed for import IGST payable under Customs Act 1962. I already discussed this, that the IGST on the imported goods is paid under Customs Act, and therefore those cases are not covered under this amnesty scheme. Next issue is with retrospective insertion of subsection 5 and 6 to section 16 of the CGST Act, the tax demanded in notice statement order reduces. Whether the entire tax amount demanded in the notice statement order has to be paid in such cases to avail the benefit under section 128. And the clarification has been given that sub rule 5 of rule 164 mentions that the amount payable in order to avail the benefit under section 128A shall be calculated after deducting the amount not payable in accordance with subsection 5 or subsection 6. Yeah, this I have already explained to you. That amount become eligible after insertion of subsection 5 or 6. That is, the time limit for availing ITC is extended up to November 2021. And in case of cancellation of registration also, extra time limit has been provided to avail the ITC. That amount has to be reduced from the total tax demanded in the notice, and for the balance amount, the application can be filed under the amnesty scheme. And last is in case of application in form GST SPL 02, that is where the order has been issued, where the applicant has paid full or partial amount of tax through form GST DRC 03, whether the said applicant is mandatorily required to file application in form GST DRC 03A for such amount which he desires to get adjusted against tax demand as per form GST DRC 07 or DRC 08 from IGST APL 04. Yes, he has to basically where the order has been issued and the taxpayer has sub-rule 2 of Rule 64 before filing the application in Form GST SPL 03. That means first he has to apply under that Form DRC 03A, get, get it transferred to electronic liability register, and then settle the demand through electronic liability register. This additional formality he has to cover. So these were the clarifications given by Central Board of Indirect Taxes with respect to various queries raised by the taxpayers or by various forums. And this is the scheme, how to apply, who has to apply, and what is the procedure that we have discussed. Even though the scheme looks to be good, but in certain cases, the taxpayer has to pay additional amount and apply for the lesser amount because of certain situations which I have explained earlier also. So these were the details of the amnesty scheme which is issued or which has made applicable from 1st of November 2024 till 31st March 2025. In case you have any queries or any doubts, you can send your queries through email either to WRC or to me directly. I'll reply to it. My email ID is also given, sanjaybhargava@bhargava.com, or you can send your queries to WRC also, and WRC will forward it to me and will reply to the queries. That's all from my side. I once again thank WRC for giving me an opportunity to share my views on this new amnesty scheme. And I thank all of you for participating in this webinar and listening to me patiently. Thank you. Thank you very much. Over to WRC.
Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful session. On behalf of the Western India Regional Council, the Professional Development Committee, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Bhargave sir for their invaluable time and their insights. Thank you so much, sir. And thanks all the participants for participating in the webinar.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And we finally conclude. So officially we conclude the meeting, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, WRC. Thank you, participants. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, sir.